Grab your favorite drink, pull up a chair, and welcome to the director's desk, where we have conversations over coffee or whatever's in your cup. I'm Karma Earl, the CEO of the McCook Housing Agency, and I'm so glad that you're here. Today we're talking with the current president of NAHRO, Sean Gilbert. What I love about today's guest is that even with the national leadership role, he still talks about the work like he's not also right in the trenches with the rest of us, because he is. He's also serving as the director of a Tennessee housing agency, dealing with the same challenges all of us face as housing leaders every day. I'm always appreciative about how humble he is about the work, and he talks about the work the way about the role of housing directors across the country. I'm also really excited about having this conversation today. So thanks, Sean, and welcome to the director's desk.
Well, it's great to be here. I just really enjoy talking with other executive directors, housing directors across the country. It's been my passion for 30 years, so this is always a pleasure finding out what other people are doing in other parts of the country.
I'm so glad, because when you agreed to do this in DC, I just was shocked, first of all, but I'm just like, what you can give to other directors is going to be so impactful, and I'm so excited about it.
Great. And
before we get into
a two-way street, I'll learn from you as much as you learn from me, probably more.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds good. Before we get into the big leadership topics, I want to start with the reality of this job. What's something about being a housing director that people on the outside, even people in our industry, don't fully understand?
All the different things in different areas we have to be experts in. You know, we run large businesses, many of us do, but you got to know the federal government, you got to know the state government, you got to know the local government. Every state's different, every locality's different, every housing agency's different. It's not like when you go into Walmart and you got sort of one box cookie cutter type thing. I've worked at agencies across the region, and every one of us does different things in different ways. We're segmented differently. We're large, small, medium, and you have to be able to work with all the segments of the population, all the way from your residents up to the HUD secretary. So, you know, there's just a giant array of things you have to know, and the knowledge base you have to accumulate quickly.
That's so true. Like, you just don't realize how many pieces there are to just this one job. There's a lot of moving parts.
Exactly. But that's also what makes it fun, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
You get to learn a lot, and you get to have impacts on people's lives on almost every action you make.
Absolutely. A lot of people in housing wonder this, and including me. How does someone become president of NAHRO? Is that something you set out to do, or did it happen naturally as you became more involved in the organization?
You know, it's not something that I woke up one day 30 years ago and said, hey, I'm going to be president of NAHRO. It sort of happened. You know, I started off working with I was in Kentucky at the time, working with the state chapter, and eventually became president of that state. And then during that process, I became involved with the region, CERC, and eventually became president of that region. And all through that process, you know, then I'm plugged in with the NAHRO, and I've always loved people. I've always loved talking to people, finding out what their thought process is, because I truly believe the more I understand about people, the better I am at my job. But and it's building that network. So I've been able to build a nationwide network. And you know, sometime a few years ago, it hadn't really entered my mind, but a couple of people approached me and said, "What do you think about running for NAHRO?" And you know, at the time, I'm like, you know, I'm back and forth. You know, I'd been on the blog, I'd been really heavily involved. But then after a couple of years, you know, I have one son, and he's basically out of the house now, and I'm like, well, it's really a good time to be able to give back. I don't have the family So I decided, yeah, this would be something I want to do. So it's sort of that blend of, you don't really go after it. It's
Yeah.
sort of, you let it come to you, and it came to me, and, it took some time, and decided it was something that I would to leave a positive impact on this industry.
Sometimes things happen to us at the perfect time. Do you think that if it would have happened when your son was still, living at home, would you have passed up on the opportunity?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I was president of the region while my son was at home, and CERC is the largest region, so it gave me a good way to get my toe in the water and realize how much more work that is. But then really this is all that on steroids once you become
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a lot, and you still have your day job back home. So I cherish these times that I'm back in the office and I can be working legitimately on a tax credit application that's due in 2 weeks and
Right.
things of that nature. So would have I? If the situation warranted, I think I've always stepped up and said yes, and made it work. But I'm really happy and blessed that it
Yeah.
happened when my son was
Just kind of, yeah. Happened at the right moment. Yeah. What advice would you give the directors who want to get more involved in region or the national level?
I would say do it. I would say do it. Start at your state and get involved there. Get to know the state president and that board. Get involved, and that's exactly what I did. I mean, I just don't be afraid of elections. You may lose
Yeah.
one along the way, but everyone that I've ever been in an election with, I'm still friends with. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just do it. It'll be very rewarding. But the great thing about it on a personal level is all of the friendships you make. But also, every time I've switch jobs, every time I've done a redevelopment project, HR issues, whatever it is, I've been able to create a network so that I can pick up the phone, drop a text, and say, hey, how did you handle this, or what's your advice? I've had mentors along the way that didn't even know they were my mentors. They just thought I aggravated them probably.
Just called all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's no need to reinvent the wheel on this stuff because, there's a lot of really great agencies, a lot of really great people that are more than willing to talk to you. And as a matter of fact, they want to. That's been, something I've been really, really blessed. And the fact that, don't be shy. I've never been shy, so if I have a question, I'm going to call and I'm going to find out the subject matter expert.
For sure. Yeah. And you say that because Sunny Shaw, who used to be president a few years ago, she was our leader in the leadership class.
Yes.
And I remember she said, at these national conferences, come up to us and talk to us. We are just family and we haven't seen each other in a while. So that's why we're tight. But we want you to be involved. And that kind of just made me sit back and go, okay, yeah, we're all doing the same work. Why wouldn't they want to talk to you? Right. So that was very impactful to me being in Washington, D.C. and, trying to make new networks, meet new people and network with people and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago when I was first going to these, whether it's regional or national, or even the state meetings, it's intimidating. You have people walk by and they're sometimes a little bit older. They've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
But I would just go stand near the conversations and eventually, work my way into it. And, eventually, it just becomes, you become part of it. And like I said, go to the social mixers. Those are a great place for getting to know people. Also, saying, what are you doing here? Because you know, if you talk to the people from wherever they are, whether it's a large agency or medium agency, you know, they have unique perspectives and they have things that you may not have thought of about making your communities better.
For sure, for sure. So you hold a national leadership role, but you still running a housing agency. How do you balance those responsibilities as president while still staying grounded in the day-to-day responsibilities of your housing leadership?
One of the things I should have mentioned when you were asking about me running for president, you know, one of the key factors is I have a great staff. I mean, my staff is second to none, and they do such a great job and support me, and they want to be a part of this, and I make sure they're a part of it. But I feel comfortable when I leave home that I don't have to be on the phone continuously.
Right. Yes. Yes.
I trust their decision making, and you know they never let me down, and I don't think they ever will. And so I try to return the favor by doing the same thing and not letting them
Yes.
down. So that's a large part of it. But even when I'm not here, they'll tell you I'm here because I'm always accessible by phone or text especially. And, you know, they'll tell you, even when I'm on the die waiting to speak, I'll be sending them emails and I'll be texting them from there saying, don't forget this, or we need to do this, or don't let me forget this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they've learned even when they're not safe, even when I'm on the stage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
staying connected all the. When I'm on vacation, I work. You know, that's just the way I've always been. So and the great thing about today is with technology, I can dial back into my computer and be working in most any hotel room in the country. And
Sure.
still be able to get access to do most of the things I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it is a time constraint. I spend a lot of time in airports. I did have a board meeting in an airport one time that did not go well. I would not suggest it. But
I can imagine.
yeah, it was Atlanta Airport, which is, you know, not exactly a slow airport.
Ideally,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, so you know that's a last case scenario, but you still keep moving the ball forward. You know, like I was telling you, 2 weeks from tomorrow we have a tax credit application due, and you know I've closed rad deals on the road.
Yeah.
You know, you make it work. You make sure one of the things we do here is we make sure we're as close to the cutting edge technologically as we can, so I can do as much as I can from the road.
Yeah, that's so crucial too, because so many agencies are working in the 1980s that coming into the 2026 era is kind of hard for them. It's a struggle just because, but for all directors, I'm sure when we're gone, we're still here. You know, we're still connected and helping the teams.
And the team usually they appreciate that. I mean, they want to know that you're accessible even with, via technology, even when you're not physically accessible.
Right.
Yeah. So it's worked well so far. I mean, you're going to have hiccups, but that's
of course. Yeah. Let's talk about the part of the job that nobody prepares you for when you become a director, the personnel issues. And we kind of touched on this a little bit. What's one of the most challenging personnel situations you've had to navigate as a housing director?
It's always, you know, rough when you get to the point of termination, of course, and
Sure.
especially
Yeah.
if you're terminating someone you like. And I've been in that situation, but you know, the way I've started handling that is I truly believe in strategic planning. I think strategic planning can save you so much headache in
Yeah.
you knowing where you want to go, your staff knowing where we want to go, your board knowing, your residents and your communities knowing. And we use that as the basis for our goal setting, for our making sure that all of our staff knows what's going on, and we tie everything back to that. So for the most part, outside of personality issues, you can take care of most things by setting clear standards. And
Yeah.
if you set a clear standard, a clear expectation, and then you follow up, don't wait till the end of the year.
Yeah.
I always hated when I've worked places, we have our conversation in December. But that really does me no good when I could have had the conversation through the year. And if
Right.
you have a lot of small conversations through the year that aren't really that difficult, but when you wait till the end of the year and you're telling someone, all through the year, you're like, okay, Betty, and I do have a staff member named Betty, so I shouldn't use her name. Okay, Sally. Why haven't you hit this goal, or we're lagging right here, but it's only March. What's your plan to get it caught up? And then in May and June, you're working to get it caught up so that in December you're not having the conversation of, well, you really had a bad year.
Right. Right.
They're stopping it at a bad quarter. So I speak to staff, all my executive staff, and we have a staff of 23. I try to talk to all of our people up here every single day in the morning. Talk to them, get to know them, and because they work hard, and I'm not here as much as I should be, so they need to know that I'm here for them when I'm here. And also, that allows us to have those little mini coaching sessions over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I would create that system 30 years ago.
Had a boss that did what he called O3s, one-on-one. It was we did it like quarterly, and it was like just a check-in, and stuff. And I really kind of established that here. I'm a new director, new management leader, and I think it's super helpful to the staff because they understand that you're on the same page as them, or they are doing what you think you should be doing, and it really kind of helps the whole staff.
Well, you got to realize if your staff's not meeting their goals, chances are you're not going to be meeting your goals.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a two-way street, and one of the things I always ask at the very beginning of our quarterly coaching sessions, and I'm sure it's sort of one-on-one type things, it's all sports analogies. So, where am I missing the mark? What can I do to support you?
Sure.
And that way, you're part of the outcome with them. Sometimes you can't help them, but I make the offer every single time.
Sure. Yeah. And I liked Sunny and Darlene talked about in the leadership class about that, and they also try to help outside of the company, the housing agency. How can I help you achieve whatever goals you have outside of here? So I thought that was kind of cool too.
It is. I mean, Richard Branson said something, I would much rather train people up and lose them than have poorly trained people on my team.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to get you the training if I can. I'm going to build you up, and if you leave and have a great life, that's just part of part of it. But at least I've helped the community at a whole be better, and then we'll train somebody else up, and hopefully they'll stay. And we have pretty good retention, but there's always going to be someone. I've left jobs before, so I can't.
Sure. Yeah.
Someone else does what's best for them and their family.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something every housing director either has faced or will face at some point. Board conflict. What would you say to a housing director who is seriously considering walking away from the job because of conflict with their board?
That's a really tough one because board conflict is so different in different areas. And I'm not talking about regions. I'm just talking about whether it's, they're mad at you because they wanted their son-in-law to get the job, or their best friend didn't get awarded a big construction job. There's so many of those things. But the best way, I've always been really, really lucky and blessed that I've had good boards, but I think you build your relationships with the boards too. So I would suggest one-on-ones. I try to on a couple of times a year, and sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes it's a little bit less than twice a year, but I have personal one-on-one lunches and dinners or whatever, breakfasts, whenever, whatever, some people aren't morning people like me.
Right, yeah. I have a couple like that. Yes.
Yeah, so I try to have a one-on-one, just me with them, and say, hey, yeah, it's a way for them to evaluate me and with me instigating it, but also for me to get feedback on where their mind is, where they think we may be missing the mark or we're hitting the mark or what they're thinking. So I always try to schedule, usually twice a year, but at least once a year, some sort of personal interaction event, and usually, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really important because that causes them to see you as a person and you to see them as a person. And
Right.
It allows you to, if you do have something on your chest, you can do it outside the format of a board meeting.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's
I like
really,
that. I
really
think I might
important.
steal that.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. A lot of times it's just you show up and it's, hey, how's the family doing, whatnot, blah, blah, blah. But I always have the question, what's your view of the housing authority right now and the job we're doing? And, where do you see improvement? And
Right.
because they're our bosses and we need to know that. And some of them don't speak up in board meetings, but they might in a one-on-one.
Yeah. I totally agree. I like that. Like I said, I may steal that from you.
Perfect, perfect. So it's worked well for me, and it's just really a way. If you got a board that's after you're a board member and you haven't sat down to eat with them, if they'll eat with you, it's a lot harder for somebody to be on your backside too bad if they know you
Right.
personally.
Right. And I love that philosophy. Makes so much sense. It's kind of like a aha moment.
So yeah, it's just stuff that builds up over years. I didn't always do that, and there's a lot of things I didn't always do, but you have to be adaptable and flexible.
Absolutely. This job can be incredibly rewarding, but it can also be incredibly heavy. Was there ever a moment in your career where you seriously thought about walking away from being a housing director?
I've been pretty lucky in the fact that I can say no. There's never really been that moment when I'm like, I've been depressed, I've been despondent, I've lost tax credit applications, I've lost other award applications, you know, 3 murders in one day at a complex, um, you know,
Right.
yeah. So, there's been incredibly disheartening moments, but what I've found is that outside of the loss of life, or family tragedy, that the moments of just joy and the fact that I can ride around my community and look at the rooftops and know that because of the work we do, people have a place to lay their head at night has always been really, really important to me. And my career aspirations have always been tied to, how can I make a living, support my family while making my community better. I think housing authorities are an ideal place to do that. So I remember talking about the rooftops. I had a Section 8 director quite a few years ago that was going through that crisis of identity of, is this what I want to do?
Sure.
Dealing with a lot of people, with whether they're having episodes or they're in a part of their life right now that either due to drugs, due to mental health issues, whatever it may be, was just really wearing her down. And we went out for a ride, and that's what I told her. I said, look around here. We drove through the Section 8 community. I said, what do you see out there? She goes, I see a lot of houses. I said, I see rooftops with kids that have a place to sleep at night and a place to learn at night, and for elderly people that can age in place with dignity, and for single parents that can know their kids are safe. And that's what you do in this job, is you build, you work in housing, but you build community and you build futures and you build outcomes.
Right. I like that, the build future, because that's the idea behind housing, is help you along the way and give you that stability so that you can succeed in life, whatever that looks like for you.
Yep, we deal in the sticks and the bricks, but we're really doing all this for the people inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Looking back on your career, what was the most pivotal moment you experienced as a housing director? That moment that really changed how you saw your role as a leader.
You know, I remember early in my career, we'd just done our first redevelopment job. We'd torn down a bunch of buildings and we had rebuilt tax credit property. And one of the first people we leased up to, and one of my favorite things in the world is to sit in on a lease up on a new property and to see the kids run in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was, I handed, we were there and it was late in the evening because, of course, in tax credit deals, you're trying to get things leased up before the end of the month, and it was on the 30th, 31st of the month. And getting these units leased, so we start generating the equity. So you're talking about all this stuff financially, but then you got a woman with her kids sitting across from you, and the kids are bouncing off the wall because they want to go see their new home, and she's trying to keep them calm down. But then at the end, you know, it becomes real emotional for her, and she starts talking about how she, you know, had instability for the last number of years and how she's just been trying to keep it together for her family. And now that she's done, you know, now that she has these keys, that she can start planning her life.
Yeah.
She can start thinking about where she wants to be in 10 years, because couch surfing, or when you're in your car, or when you're with, you know, from friend to friend to friend, that you don't have any stability. I've had, you know, kids in there ask their mom, you know, to stay here forever, and, you know, do I have to, or where are we going to tomorrow night, and stuff like that. And all those are heartbreaking moments. But then as soon as you leave and they ask them that and they get to their new place and they walk in and they're like, this is mine? This is mine?
Right.
This is all mine.
Yeah.
And those are the moments that I truly live for. Or, you know, cutting, one of my favorite things in the world is a ribbon cutting at a playground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love building playgrounds. We just built one here last year, and, you know, just to see the kids running around and playing in a place that was, you know, a mud pit or whatever it was the year before.
Right.
I intentionally built one behind, you know, behind my office so I could stand up and look out the window and see kids out playing in the playground.
Yeah.
Because it's so important for kids to release that energy and, you know,
Yeah.
play and then be able to go in and study. It just all builds better educational outcomes for kids, health outcomes for families. Term, it just builds opportunity.
Absolutely. It's nothing is a better sound is than a kid laughing. I'm like, they're screaming half the time, but the laughter, the joy, that's totally worth it, you know. Yeah.
It is. You know, whenever I hear a kid yell over there, you know,
Yeah.
I don't hear it a lot because there is a little distance to it, but when I do, you know, I'm always up peeking over it.
Yeah. I think every leader eventually has a moment where they realize the culture of their organization wasn't what they thought it was, and kind of hits you like a truck. Tell me about a moment like that in your career and what you did to change it.
You know, it's really tough to hear criticism when someone's walking out the door and say, you know, I'm leaving and this is why. And,
Yeah.
you know, we've all experienced that probably at some point, you know. So I had a similar situation. Someone was leaving and, you know, said, you know, I just can't work here. It's too stressful. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, man, I really thought we were de-stressing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this has been quite some time ago. But I look back now and I can see that, you know, the guy was, you know, really right. I was more involved with outcomes and with getting the job done. And I thought I was really good at building team. But what I found out is I didn't listen enough. So if I had one thing I had to tell a new director, it would be to be quiet more and be quiet more and less. I mean, yeah, be quiet more, but listen more.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people around you have such fantastic ideas. So,
Yeah.
and just listen and find out what works, because usually they want the same thing you want. And, they want to provide for their families. They want to do a good job. They want to be less stressful. They want to go out and enjoy the sunshine. All the same things you want to do, and if you listen to them, they'll tell you oftentimes how to get it done in a way that might not be really your ideal way, but if it's their ideal way, often that's a lot better for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
organization. So we're real big on team building. We're really big on, communication now. I mean, we do. We just did a staff survey, anonymous staff survey, so we can see where we have our weaknesses and where we have strengths, and that's really been helpful. And I'm convinced, no matter how much we communicate, though, communication will always be the point on there that people want more communication.
Yeah, for sure. That's always going to be a point, yes.
Yeah, it's always going to be, but that's fine. We got to meet people halfway. We can send emails, we can put newsletters. Some people just don't want it in that format, so some people want it one-on-one, so we're doing more one-on-one stuff. But we do more fun stuff too, Employee Appreciation Day, and Cinco de Mayo Day, or whatever it is that the staff wants to do.
Sure.
Birthday. We work hard, and it doesn't hurt, once a month for half an hour to say, hey, you guys are valued, you're appreciated, and you work hard, so let's get to know each other, and let's take care of each other and our mental health. Take care of yourself. If you need that extra time off, take a little time off.
You're right. Yeah.
Because ultimately, families first. That one has always been my motto. You got to take care of yourself and your family first. We'll be here. So just if you can, let us know, and we'll do our best to pick up the slack.
Public housing leadership is not an easy job. The pressure, the regulations, the board dynamics, the community expectations. This job is just hard, and it's not for the weak. Sometimes you have to have real thick skin to get through the day. So I want to ask you something, director to director. What keeps you coming back to this work every day? The kids in the playground.
Kids in the playground, the people around me. I tell our staff all the time, and they might come in and be yelling at you, but they're not really yelling at you. They're yelling because they just got turned down for whatever. They just lost their job. Their car broke down. Their kids flunked a test. The kids being bullied. Whatever it is, our people have. A lot of them have really, really rough lives. And some of them, made poor decisions. Some of them haven't. But everybody out there needs a second chance. And everyone that walks in that door that yells at you is not necessarily, they're going through a trauma in their life. And a lot of times they'll come in and yell with you, and by the time they leave, their goal is, what's your problem? They might just be upset that, that they lost their Social Security or whatever it is, and, okay, Ms. Smith, what's the situation? And, we try to help people because it's all about community building, and, and you have to have thick skin and a short memory.
You do.
Yeah. I don't get too mad at people. And when I was younger, I was a little bit more hot-headed. Now if you come in and yell at me, I just tell myself, I would much rather than be yelling at me than out doing something even less productive.
Yeah. You can take it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. My son is in this industry now, and he's been in it for a little bit less than a year, and he comes home and tells me the stories that I've already lived.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just, realize.
You're like, yep, been there, done that.
Yeah, been here, done that. And, but ultimately you're here to help those people that are yelling at you. And that's not an easy thing to do all the time. So, but it really makes you a better customer, like when you're at a restaurant or you're.
It really does, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to like step back for a second. You're like, okay, how do I want to handle this situation?
Yeah, and it
I told my old boss I was, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just said it teaches you a lot of life lessons.
I was just gonna say, my old boss, I used to tell him his door was the best door to slam because he let me do that to him, and I would just be, I could only handle so much, and then I just, blah, and his door was just, it was just the best. It slammed and it slammed hard, and you didn't have to really push very much, and I tell him that all the time. Like, your door was the best door to slam ever. And he knew when I walked in, he just was like, okay, she just needs to let off some steam. I was never really mad at him ever, but he just let me unload and then we chatted and I was fine.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to get it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes, my drive home, that's what it is sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. For the drive home. Yeah, for sure. If you could go back to your very first day as a housing director, knowing everything you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Don't worry about the failures. You're going to learn from them. You're going to have them. Um, it's okay to grieve over the residents that you lose to the system or to their bad decisions, but really focus on the ones that you're going to help and the ones you're going to salvage. And, value your staff's opinions. Always make sure, you're having staff meetings, they're involved, they're not, now, if you're doing certain things, sometimes you can't let anybody else know, but anytime you can, be as open and transparent. Don't ever have a closed door policy where your staff has to have an appointment with you.
Yeah.
So let them know you're here because you're here for them, because they're
Sure.
here for you. If they're not doing what they need to do, ultimately it can bring you down as well. So
Sure.
build them up every chance you get, and when you walk outside these doors and you're around other people, we've got the best organization there is.
Absolutely. Yes. Just one piece of advice you would give a new director who might be struggling.
Reach out to your peers in your network. If you don't have a peer in a network, go to the NAHRO website, find people like me, give us a yell. That's what we're here for. I remember that when my first day on the job at a housing authority, I went in as executive director of a place that had about 700 or 800 units, different programs. We had about 28, 30 people on staff, and I was the youngest one. No one knew me. So when I walked in the door, you feel like you have a bullseye on you all over the place. So, but you go in, my suggestion is go in and listen to people. I didn't know, looking back now, I wish I'd had me telling me something.
Yeah.
Then don't go in thinking you know everything. Don't go in thinking, because so many of the people there had so much more life experience than I did. And they understand the rules and the programs so much better than I did. And if I would have taken more time, they were great people. I stayed there for years, and we got along well. And to this day, I consider them friends. But I could have made it a lot easier on all of us at the beginning if I didn't walk in there thinking that I'm the boss.
Sure.
I was
Yeah.
never horrible for that, but we always have a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Sit down with everybody, get to know them. Don't do end of the year review. Let me take that back. You can do an end of the year review, but make sure it's not the first time you've touched with people and talked about where you're going to have a hard conversation, and you're going to find out they didn't hit your goals, so you didn't hit your goals, and you're both mad at each other when it's something, if you'd have been talking with it on a daily or monthly, probably could have been taken care of. So I know that's a lot, but just really value the people you're around them and trust them. And as long as you can until you just can't trust them.
For sure. Yeah. So we're going to do a little.
What would your advice be?
Well, I'm still really new, but I also kind of felt that way when I walked in. It wasn't such a bullseye as it was like a light that shined right on me, so everybody knew where I was going. The other thing I might have done that I should have probably done 6 months in was introduce myself individually to every tenant. And I kind of was like, I'm here for the staff's here for the tenants, and I'm here for everybody also. But I should have taken that step into introducing myself to the tenants, because I've done some stuff and they're like, who are you? And I'm like, oh, okay, you don't even know, after almost 3 years, you don't know who I am. Well, I've never met them. So that would be something I would do.
One of the things that I did early on, and leading back to that, is I did inspections every unit for the first few years. Just to get the units, get to know people. When they came in and talked to me, I sort of had an idea. Okay, I've been in your unit. Don't tell me you're not smoking. I know you are.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You kind of have that background a little bit with them. Yeah. So we're gonna do a quick and rapid fire round. Almost couldn't get that out.
Just like being on a game show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. What word? Let me try that again. One word that describes a great housing director.
Flexible.
What leadership trait matters more than people realize?
Listening.
What's something new directors worry about way too much?
Themselves.
True. What's a decision you made as a director that kept you up at night, but you knew it was the right decision?
No, I can't do that one in one word.
Oh, that's okay.
Now, can you repeat the question again?
What's a decision you made as a director that kept you up at night, but you knew it was the right decision?
Yeah, for me, it always comes back to terminations of staff. I always want to go back and say, did I do everything I could to help this person? Did I do everything that I could? And invariably, you come back, well, I wish I'd have done this or that possibly, but as I've gotten older, I've, realized that, most people, unfortunately, bring this on themselves. Because that's the last goal. My goal in life would be to never terminate an employee, because you're not just terminating them, you're terminating their family. You're making it harder for that. So, that's been one of the main things that's kept me up at night, trying to work your way through telling yourself, yeah, there's no other way for the organization. And then
have you got to the point where you're like, I've done so many things. It's not like one bad thing happens and you're just like, terminate. Because for me, I've only done it 3 times and it was horrible every single time. But every time I looked at the whole story, I was like, we've been doing this for a year. So I've been.
Yeah, no, usually, earlier in my career, it was much more horrible because you're just really beating yourself up, and you should beat yourself up a little bit before you mess with something. So realize quickly that, they really should be beating themselves up, because when I look back on it, I realized I gave more chances probably than most people would. And my management style is such that I'm an open door. The other thing I would say is never ever say something because that's what somebody wants to hear. Always be truthful, even if it's a hard truth. so much easier to tell the truth now and then to get someone's expectations up and then all of a sudden have to tell them, no, we couldn't do that, or this didn't
Yeah.
happen. I mean, we've all been there, you know, you think this will happen? Well, it could. And you're sitting here going, no, it probably won't. It's much better to just say, you know, that's going to be a difficult one. Let's talk, you know, you may say, let's talk about it and see if we can get there. But, you know, don't give that false sense you know, that this will probably work out if it doesn't. Be realistic, tell the truth, and just realize, you know, the last thing you ever want to do is to hurt other individuals.
Sure.
I left at the end of every day when I've had to do something like that. You know, I haven't slept poorly because, you know, just because I knew it was the right thing to do. Then you leave and you hope that they can rebuild.
Sure. Land on your feet. That's all we want. Yeah. I love conversations like this because they remind us that no matter the title or the position, housing leadership is about service, people, and community. And every director listening is navigating similar challenges in their own communities. Sean, before we wrap up, I'd love to ask you one final question about your journey. When you look back at your career as a housing director, the challenges, the successes, the moments that shaped you, what part of the journey are you most proud of?
You know, I can't say that there's just like this one bright light. It's all these little lights that I hope that I've helped and I've lit. You know, bigger projects are great, but I much rather think about all the people that live under those rooftops that hopefully our work has benefited. You know, anytime I've seen a kid that's got a scholarship or that,
Sure, yeah.
or an elderly widow that, you know, due to no fault of her own, is now on her own, that, you know, now can age in place with dignity. You know, all those little points of comfort that we've been able to establish for people and be a part of. You know, you don't realize, you know, as I get older, I realize all the times and all the people that live more comfortably because of what we do, or kids that now have good jobs because they've gone through our resident services programs, or they, you know, we just had a little girl last year that won the national poster contest for NAHRO.
That's so cool.
So, you know, I've seen her blossom and go from somebody that was so painfully shy to, you know, she went to DC and she got to be exposed to so much that she wouldn't necessarily, and coming out of her shell and being friendly and being outgoing, and, you know, and it's just things like that, you know, I personally won't forget. Handing the keys over, having kids run up that, you know, that you don't even know and give you a hug and, you know, thank you. And you don't even always know what they're thanking you for because it's so deep. You know, they're not just thanking you for, you know, what you're doing. They're thanking you because now they have a place to live and a room of their own. You know, we've worked with companies that make beds for our families, and to see
Awesome.
these kids get a bed for the first time they haven't had a
Yeah.
bed is just like,
Yeah.
you know, as soon as that bed is built and they lay that mattress on there, you're not getting sheets on there, and you're not getting fitted sheets and all that on there because they're going to lay on it.
Yeah.
As soon as
They
it
want
goes
to
on
jump
there,
on it and lay on it. And
we've learned you put it on there with the plastic on it because
Right.
their shoes have been. So, but it's just so cool watching them lay there and smile because they've been sleeping on the floor, or they've been sleeping on the rug, or had a sleeping bag, and you're like, you know, this kid's going to sleep better tonight, and he's going to do better at school tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. That's so cool. I know in Washington, at our leadership graduation, you had mentioned something that the graduating class, we're the next generation. You know, Sonny was the president at one point. You're the president. Ivy was there. So it was like, we're the ones that are the next wave, right? So what do you hope the next generation of housing directors carries away from leaders like you?
I hope they carry away the fact that this is never about us. No matter when or where we're at, whether I'm the president of NAHRO or I'm the executive director of Tennessee Valley Housing Services or wherever I'm working, if you're doing this work, it's about our communities. And it's about all those little points of light in their communities that are people that, oftentimes due to no fault of their own, sometimes, it's due to bad decisions. But whatever the reason is, these are all people that deserve a place to call home. And that's why we do this, because when people have safe housing and stable housing and affordable housing, their outcomes are better. And when Americans have better housing, it makes the need for less jails. It creates the need for more jobs. It fills those jobs. People don't realize, what kind of economic impact housing authorities have on their communities. And if you took the housing authority out, you're taking millions of dollars out of it.
Yeah.
So, I just think just keep the servant leader part of that, and always realize, it's an opportunity and a blessing to be in this. The other businesses that are more about just, making money for your family. I'm so glad that I have a job that I get to take care of my family while also being a servant leader.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Sean, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your experiences and leadership with us. And to everyone listening, as always, grab your favorite drink, pull up a chair, and join us the next time on the director's desk, where we have conversations over coffee or whatever's in your cup.